So, you've got yourself a copy of Source 2 with Life Alyx, and be it the filmmaker or the mapping things or whatever it is you want to do, you have been faced by a problem. Sure, you have all of the assets of Life Alyx, and potentially anything you would have taken off the Valve Life Alyx workshop, but what about any other assets? Assets you would like to take from Source 1? For instance, these Half-Life 1 assets. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at how you can get these ported over to the Half-Life Alyx tools. Just to mention, although this is a gold sourced model, it has already been ported over to work in the Source 1 engine. So this isn't really going to be about converting from gold source into other things. This is just about converting from Source 1 into Source 2. The first tool you're going to need is one called Crowbar. This is used to decompile the models from their .mdl format into their decompiled format. All you need to do is specify an output location and specify the location of the model you're decompiling. In this case, Half-Life 1 Barney.mdl, and set up the settings to how they need to be. In this case, pretty much just use the default. Then you press the decompile button, and in a matter of moments, everything should be decompiled into your folder that you have selected. And inside the folder, you'll find a QC, which is the file which tells the model how to behave, where the various bones are, collision boxes, and the names of the various sequence animations which are included. Since Crowbar also is able to decompile the animations, allowing us to use them later on in the Source 2 engine. With the model now decompiled by Crowbar and ready to use, the next step is within Blender, the 3D studio for modeling, animation, and various other things. The first thing we need to get for this to work is the Blender source tools. There's a reference here on the developer site for Valve software, and you can find it yourself in whatever places you would look to find them. You simply install it, go to your preferences, and find it under add-ons, searching source tools and ticking it. This will then allow you to go into File, Import, and Source Engine.smd, blah blah blah, .dmx.qc. And you now give it the location that you have decompiled these assets to, paste it in as the location, and select only the QC. You only need the QC for this. And import. It's given us some errors, but don't worry about them. We have here the model, that's the important part. Now the first thing you'll notice, potentially, is that the model is huge. That's simply a byproduct of how big the source games are compared with how Blender handles sizes. You'll also notice this boxy outline. This is the collision box, and you don't need it. If you want to delete it, just press X and delete. You'll also see there's no textures. Now, this is something that will be fixed inside of Source 2, since there is no need to sort out applying the textures inside of Blender. Let's check that the animations are here and working, and inside of the action editor of the dope sheet, we can see by selecting various animations, some of which do not work. That's simply a matter of how the engine handles animations, the source engine that is. We will see that the animations are functional. Now notice that any animation with motion, such as this running animation, this motion should be kept. There's no need to make changes to this. So now that we see the animations are functioning properly, it's simply a matter of renaming these for your own tidiness and exporting them. We pull these down, they will disappear because they are going inside of this thing. we can select the folders, press X to remove them, and we'll rename him Barney. Perhaps even Barney HL1. And this can be renamed to Barney Gun, Barney Gun Holster, and Barney Body. Next we go to this particular button here, Scene Properties, and scroll down to find the Source Engine Export options. Now you need to choose an export location. This can be wherever you want it, but I would recommend, at least for now, putting it in the same folder with the objects you previously decompiled through Crowbar. Feed this in as the location. Have it selected as DMX, Z-axis as up, which it is. The DMX version should be 5, and model 22. This is for the Source 2 engine. Now down here you have a selection of the things which you are going to be exporting. And for right now we want to keep all of these, although we can deselect the animation, since animations do not export as DMXs, but instead export as SMDs. With this setup, simply export, and the scene export the 3 files which are selected here. And there we have them, exported as DMXs, now in the correct file type to be opened in the Source 2 engine. Let's go over to the Source 2 engine and see what happens. The first thing you'll see when you open up the Source 2 engine is this asset browser. This is like the working hub of the engine. You have here the Filmmaker, the Material Editor, Hammer, the mapping engine, and the model dock. For now we're going to be clicking on the model dock. And now we continue on, clicking on Add, and Add Meshes. It will then prompt you for the meshes that you wish to add, and you feed it the DMXs you created through Blender. You can select all of these and hit Open. It will now want you to save. Aha. Now I did this deliberately, obviously, because I wanted to show you that you can only open assets which are inside of the content folder of Source 2. I have a shortcut here, but for you, you have Life Alyx inside of your Steam app folder. Inside of that, content. Make sure it's content, not game. The game folder holds compiled versions of whatever it is you create in the content folder. Go into content, add-ons, and this will be whatever name you have named it to be. Click on this, models. These last ones, if you don't have them, you can make it yourself, although user mod can be called whatever. And in here, however you've sorted your folder structure, you go into wherever the assets need to be from. Here we'll have Barney HL1. Oh, something else I also need to mention. No spaces, no capital letters. Only lowercase values, numbers, and underscores are allowed in this entire string. Anything else will not work. Go into the folder, and we paste in these assets ported out through Blender. Now let's try again to add them. And we see it works. Nothing happens, so we press compile. And here we have a wireframe glowing error of the Barney model. Tracking all the way back to Source 1, we of course see that this model has various textures. If we want to find out what these textures are from in here, we can click on the specific model, right click. Now for you this will say add material override, but for me it says removed because I already have a material override. Show in element viewer and model. And here in the element viewer, underneath materials, you get a list of every single material which is being referenced by this model. And yes, there are quite a lot. That's because, well, as I mentioned before, these have been ported over from Gold Source, and they're not exactly optimized. So for this, it's a fairly slow process. For other models which are more optimized, there will be fewer. But for here, we see the locations of each material which is required. For example, the front mid, the chest part here. We see the location is inside models, Barney, and it's called BX front mid 1. So let's run away and find where this texture is to be found. Even though there's no folder called materials here, every single material will be inside a folder called materials. So materials, models, Barney, and BX front mid 1. And this leads us to a VMT. Now, maybe you don't already have this aligned to be opened by a specific piece of software, but I have fixed it so that it is automatically opened by Notepad++. And we see here the details of this material, and importantly, that the texture itself is located, models the same, Barney the same, VX front mid 1. So it's in the same place. And I'm only really showing you that for completeness because we can see quite clearly that it's right here. We're going to click on this material and it will be opened inside of this piece of software called VTF Edit, which you'll have to go and find and install yourself if you don't have it. From here we go File and Export, but we're not actually going to do this, because instead of exporting each of these one at a time like a monkey, we're simply going to reopen VTF Edits, go to Tools, and Convert Folder. Feed it to this location as the input. Let's see, this stupid awful piece of trash, this thing. And assign it an output location. Here it will just create materials here in the same place with the DMXs from Blender. And here we have inserted the output folder to be here with the DMXs we exported through Blender. Set this to export as a PNG. You could have a JPEG if you want, but PNG is high quality. And convert. It'll take a few moments, and then all of them will appear here as PNGs, nicely converted and ready to be used. Now the next step of the operation, to reopen the material editor, and for every single one of these, sadly, yes, I know, we're going to have to create a new texture, save it as something, whatever you'd need to use. Barney Half-Life 1, materials. We'll call this chest front and save. Saving will then allow you to start editing this texture. The first thing you're going to need is the color, also known as the diffuse, the texture itself. Click on the folder, specify its location. Go to all images, because by default it's looking for something with a suffix of _color. If you'd like to, you can add this, but it's not necessary. Go to all images and select the front chest here. And in a moment it'll update and show you what you want to see. If you want to change other things, you can add roughness, metallic materials, whatever you need. You can also play around with these settings, which allow you to do various things like self-illumination for lights, specular for metalness textures, transparencies and translucency for objects with transparency in them, and so on. Now by default, the shader setup type will be VR Simple here, but personally I recommend clicking on shaders, scrolling up to VR Complex, and setting this as the default. This simply gives you some more options to play around with. With this created, we'll go back to save it. You see the little star disappears, and we'll go back to the model doc earlier. Now to add the materials, we're going to click Add and Default Material Group, Default. And clicking here, we get the list of all of the necessary textures this model is looking for. We'll go find the BX front mid here and click search, and we'll look for front chest and select it. Click compile, and whoops, I think we've chosen the wrong part of the model. Never mind, we'll try again. Front top looks more like it to me. And there we have it. The first step of texturing this ported model is completed. Now all you have to do is do this for however many materials your object specifically has. So we're finished, the tutorial's over, everything is completed. The materials have been applied and everything is good to go and be used however you wish to use them. But wait, watch this. Why does he have 2 hands? Why 2 guns? What about his mouth moving? What about the animations? I guess we're not done yet. First, let's see if we can sort out an alternative set of textures for him being heard. I specified before that you should put default material group when searching for this particular field. Now we're going to search for a simple material group and choose this one. And we're going to give this a new name. Whatever name it is, you'll choose that yourself, but for this part we're going to call it injured. And OK. And now what this will do, if we compile it, what this will do is we'll say, well, we have here the default materials, but here we have a material group, and the materials will remain the same unless there is a new material specified in the material group. What that essentially means is that for any instance of a material which we change for another, they will be changed. But any material which is left unchanged will not be changed. They will use whatever is set by the default material group. We see here that these are now changing to be the injured variety. And here we have under material groups, default and injured. And now we can quickly switch between multiple textures by clicking on whichever we desire. Next up we have the animations. See if we can get these to work with this model. As you remember, we didn't yet export any animations from Blender. So back in here, the folder inside of the Life Alyx content folder, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to create a new folder for animations, called whatever you need it to be. We're going to run along back into Blender, and we'll choose the first animation. Let's say idle, Barney idle. Now we go back to SMD under the source engine export options. Select SMD, untick these models here which do not work being exported as an SMD, and tick the animation. You know it's an animation because of this symbol here. Now simply click export and export the one selected file. Now perhaps we want more animations, so let's export, let's say animation 3, where he messes with his trousers, whatever he's doing. Automatically that will change here from idle 1 to idle 3. We just hit export again. Now let's say draw, we want him drawing his weapon. Like that. Export this. Now lastly, because no need to do everything right now, although we could, we're going to grab the animation of Barney walking. With these all exported out, I'm going to go back to the location they have been exported to, grab the animations and put them in the Life Alyx folder, content folder we created just a moment ago. Now with this location copied, we'll go back to the model doc before and add simple animations from here. Now make sure you exported them as SMDs, and now feed this the location, and we'll select the 4 animations we just exported. Open. Now it's smart, so it recognizes idle, and it recognizes walk. It recognizes that walking might be something we want to have loop, which we do. It recognizes idle might be something we also want to have looping, which we do, as well as idle 3. We'll say yes for now, that's good. And now we have the animations here. We'll recompile, go to animation controls and press play. We can see the draw animation, which was given no looping tag, is playing and looping like this. The idle animation, the other idle animation, and the walking animation. Now, see here, it's done a job for us, but I was going to show you how to do this, so I'm going to delete the little addition it made. Usually, well, not usually, because this just proved me wrong, but in this instance, you can see that it walks forward, but at the end of the walking animation, it snaps back to its starting position. But we don't want that to happen. We want to extract the motion from the root motion and use that to drive the location of the object. If that's too technical, don't worry, you'll soon understand what I'm blathering on about. Let's select on the walk animation we've created, right click, and of everything here, all we need is add extract motion. Let's recompile, and automatically it's understood that the root bone is the root bone. Specified down here. There's no need to specify now because it's already worked. As you can see, the grid beneath his feet is now moving, meaning that he's moving through the world rather than looping back at the end of the animation. This is important because if we jump over to S2FM to quickly show you what I mean, we can add the Barney model, Barney Half-Life 1. Here he is. Go to Import, Sequence, Walk, and without having to set anything up, it will walk through space. That's the advantage of using this ability to extract the root motion of the animation. So now we have the animations imported, and with a bit more work we could have all of them functioning properly. So let's move on to the next step and see if we can get his mouth to move. The process of creating morphs or facial flexes requires us to run back to Blender. It's not that scary. As you can see here, it already has a bone for controlling the mouth, but that's not what we're here to do. To create a facial flex or a morph, which, to be clear, you don't need to only adjust the face, this can change any part of the model, of any model that has vertices. First, in Blender, you'll want to select your model, and then with this tab on the top left, you'll want to set it to edit mode. Or if you want, you can just press the tab key to jump to edit mode of whatever you have selected. Then you're going to want to go down to this tab, the Object Data Properties, and you'll see here a tab called Shape Keys. The first thing you do is press the plus button to add a basis. This is your default, the thing that the model will have initially. Here you can create another one and double click it and give it a new name, in this case mouth. This itself is now the actual shape key which will be used inside of, well, whatever software you're using this in this case Source 2. Inside of edit mode, being sure that the new mouth shape key is selected, you're going to go to whichever part of the model you want, in this case the mouth, and up the top left here you can select vertices, edges or faces. With the vertices selected, you can move these points. With the face selected, which is what we'll do in this case, we're going to select a part of the chin and move it down slightly. Now what the shape key will do is we'll take the first location from the basis and the new location from the shape key, and then depending on how much the shape key is set to, between usually 1 or 0 or 0% and 100%, it will morph the model, hence its name as a morph, from the initial base position to the new mouth position. The same goes for whatever model you would be changing and whatever elements of that model would be edited. This is not restricted to only facial expressions or opening mouths. Here, although the teeth is a separate part from the mouth, it's its own thing, we're just going to bring this down to follow the path of the mouth as it opens. And then, even though it's not joined exactly, it will follow along when we change these morphs inside of Source 2. You can press W, E, and R to go between moving, rotating, and scaling. Here, just scaling the mouth slightly to fit its new location. Pressing Tab again, or selecting Object Mode in the top left tab, we can see that this mouth key, sliding the value from 0 to 1, opens and closes the mouth, just as we had hoped for. This preview you see here is the same as the model will behave when it's ported back into Source 2. So going back to the DMX exports, with specifically the body selected, since that's what contains the head, we can re-export to the export path we set previously and override the initial models that we'd ported into Source 2. Going back into Source 2 with the model exported, you can see it's asking to be compiled. Pressing this updates the model. And here, underneath the Morph Explorer, you can see our new morph created, in this case mouth. But, as you may see, changing this slider does not actually affect the model. Now why is that, you might ask? Well, the reason is actually because the material itself has to be set to accept morphing. Even if the morph changes the model, it's the material which receives the changes, in a sense. Inside the model, you can see that under Animation, there is a blank tick box called Morph Supported. Now this is the vest, this isn't what is accepting the morphs, so we're going to have to go and find the texture for the face. And we can find this in the material browser, or we can simply go to the default material groups here and scroll down and find it, double clicking to automatically open it inside of the material editor. Then it's simply a matter of selecting whichever other body parts are involved and ticking Morph Supported. These then just have to be saved, and they should update automatically inside of the model doc. You see now they work. But what's this? You can see that the inside of the mouth is transparent. Well, that's because even if we set the face and the neck to have morph support, we did not set the inside of the mouth or the teeth. So let's now just add both of these to the morph supported tick box, and we'll find these in perfect working condition. Now that we have face reflexes working, you can take a moment to make some more yourself if you want, perhaps expressions, perhaps the motion of breathing in and out of the chest. But now that that's out of the way, let's go back to one of our firstly noted issues of the duplicate guns. The process of creating body groups, the last thing we're going to be looking at, is a little bit more long-winded. What we have to do, basically, is break down the parts of the models into component pieces. So here one of the issues we have is having a gun in the holster and a gun in the hand, which means we have to separate the gun in the hand and the gun in the holster to be their own things. So we're going to click on the object, go into edit mode, and we'll see we have the hand here. Now we have the hand here already. This will be one body group, the hand with the gun, and the hand without the gun will be the other. We're hovering over the hand, we can press L, and because the hand is one enclosed model, you could say, since even if this whole thing is one model, this hand is its own specific part, as it were. And as you see, the thumb here is also its own specific part. So if both of these selected, right click, go down to separate by selection. And now this hand is its own thing. But the hand will still be controlled by the skeleton, which means the various animations will still work. And we're going to call this Barney Hand. So now I have Barney Hand and Barney Gun. And inside of the Valve Source Filmmaker, and whatever other Source 2 stuff, we will be able to switch between these. Now the other problem is having a holstered gun and an unholstered gun. Simply, we would need to separate the holster. We'll go separate by selection, and now the holster is its own thing too. So we can have leaving edit mode. We can have Barney holstered, or rather unholstered for this one, and Barney holstered for the other. Now let's see, we have a slight issue right now, since the gun holster and the hand appear to be attached. Hide the gun since we don't need it right now, and hide the unholstered holster. Now why these are joined, I'm not sure, because as we see, they're not moving in the same way, so they're not actually joined. As in, they're not actually one model. If they were one model, they would both be moving together in sync rather than as individual objects. But the issue here appears to be that a duplicate of the hand has found its way inside of the gun holster model. So we'll just hover over the hand and the thumb and delete these by pressing X to bring up the delete window. And now we just need to put this back to the 0 position to put it back to where it needs to be. The same for the hand. And now these should be all separate objects as they are supposed to be. Rename this to give it some clarification as to what they are. Gun holstered and gun unholstered. And for right now, this should be all the steps that we're required to make. So we can go back here to the Source Engine export options. And we see here these little numbers. These numbers are showing that there is one shape key involved in this object. We can select the unholstered hand, the holstered, the empty, and the armed parts of the model, and export all of these as we did before, as DMXs to this location, and export, scene export. Let's have a look at what's being exported and what we need. We can see here, unholstered, holstered, body, the gun. This gun we no longer need since it is superseded by this part here. So we can delete this. Now let's just open up the original Source engine, not the original one, Source 2 engine that we had before. And with the asset browser opened up, we'll go back into the model doc from before and open up Barney. You see, if we compile that, right now everything appears to be in good order. But compiling is failing because the gun is missing. The gun which we deleted. We can simply press delete and remove this since it's no longer needed. Let's recompile the model now, and everything is as it should be, except of course there is no hand. So let's go back, add, and as we did at the very start, add meshes, give the location to where we exported to, and add the elements which have been newly created, apart from gun holsters, since that already is a part of it. Compiling it now, we have stuff back, but as the issue we had before, 2 guns, 2 hands, you know. So we're going to do a body group, simply by pressing the add button and body group. Body group and body group choice doesn't seem to make a difference. At least it doesn't appear to make a difference inside of the S2FM engine. The point of body group choice is that you have a list of choices which each cancel each other out, so you can only have one at a time. But in S2FM at least, that doesn't seem to work. I think if it was set to automatically choose itself, such as which head to use on a citizen model in Half-Life Alyx, I believe it's for that, but for S2FM it doesn't work. So we're going to just use a normal body group. Add a new body group, and we'll call it Armed. And while we're at it, we'll create another body group, and we'll call it Unarmed. Let's be consistent with our naming. Compile, and into the Armed selection, we're going to add a body group choice here. Compile again, and add two meshes, since this body group is going to comprise of a hand and a holster. Wait, we don't need to have created both of these. This is for if we want them to affect something different. So we can actually delete this second one. We can keep this called Armed though. And we'll have this choice called Armed. Well, it failed to rename because we're trying to give it a name which is already being used. So we'll call it Weapon Held. And we'll select it, copy, paste, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. And we'll call this one Weapon Holstered. Perhaps it's spelled wrong, never mind. And now we have these 5 unnamed choices, and they're unnamed because they haven't been given names here. We'll call the body the body. We don't exactly need to name the body right now, but we'll do it anyway. Just for full clarification of what everything is. And hand empty. That's the meshes all properly named as to what they are. And if we go back into here, we'll see the names now show what is in there. So weapon held, the gun in the hand. That means we need the empty holster and the gun with the hand. For the weapon holster, we want the holster being used and the empty hand. And now compiling it, we see the secondary gun disappears and we have only the one hand. However, we can go into the body group choices and we see body is here on its own. It automatically creates this one because the body will always be visible. It brings up a warning that body is not in any body groups, meaning it will always be visible, but that doesn't matter because that's what we want. We do, however, have the choice to have the gun in the hand or the weapon holstered. Changing them will put the gun in the location it is necessary to be. This process can be reused for any kind of body groups you'd need, such as for changing the heads or putting other adornments on the model, whatever you choose to use. And now, with everything pretty much wrapped up and finalized, what we're left with is an imported model taken directly from Source 1, with the animations included, with motion being derived from the particular animations that require it. We have material groups for different states of the model. We have body groups to show it at different states of the model as well, similar thing. One texture based, another model based, and we have the capacity to change various colors and change the reflectivity of the helmet, the shininess of the armor, whatever you wish to do. There'll be another video coming out sooner or later on some extra bonus features you can achieve inside of porting assets over to the Source 2 engine. Make sure to subscribe or perhaps even join the Discord if that's what you're hoping to see.